What's going on, everybody? It's the Bearded One back with another beer review. Tonight we have a pastry stout from Highwire Brewing in Asheville, North Carolina. And Asheville, North Carolina has kind of become the Oregon of the East Coast. You know, where Oregon is known for like Yakima Valley and, you know, like the, not necessarily Oregon, but like Washington and that whole northwestern region is known for growing most of the hops in the country. And then Oregon specifically is just like a mini mecca of breweries. I'd love to go to like Portland one day, or you know, any other great city. I think Salem's in Oregon. That might be in Washington. But anyways, and then North Carolina seems to be like that. My wife almost planned an anniversary trip one year to North Carolina. And one of the cities, I want to say Raleigh, was in the world records for most breweries per capita. So that was pretty interesting to see. As you know, being from Alabama, I don't normally think of North Carolina as being like famous for brewing, but I guess they are. And this one, if you can't already tell from the can, is Jelly Donut 10w-40. I like to think of 10w-40 as them acknowledging Imperial Stouts come out as motor oil, like your typical 5w-30 or things of that nature. However, I could not find anything on this beer that was meaningful. They don't even list this beer on their website, even as a specialty. Although the 10w-40 series is on the website, you can find other versions of this beer. For some reason, the Jelly Donut is not on there. But it does say on the can, it's an Imperial Stout brewed with vanilla, chocolate, boysenberry, sweet cherries, a deconstructed deconstructed donut glaze, and lactose. Do I think it's going to taste like a jelly donut? Probably not, but I hope it has character of a jelly donut. That would be nice. It'd be nice if the yeast and the malt really shined through and gave a donutty flavor. Anyways, as I get pouring, I want to mention a couple of things. There's some people I work with that are now following the channel, and it means a lot if you guys happen to see this video. I love talking beer. I hope I'm not an asshole about beer. I try not to talk down to people. I don't claim to be an expert by any means, and I welcome any conversation on beer. And that brings me to this. I don't always say this on the channel, but like, hate, comment, subscribe, unsubscribe, just do something on the channel. It makes me feel good and gives me motivation to continue doing this stuff. And then I'm going to close. We'll get into the review right after this, but I want to close with tonight will be a double feature. I'm not going to kill off this beer right away. I'll review this beer, and then I'll immediately flip over to a second beer, because I'm trying to get through my fridge of all the stouts I have in my fridge that I bought up for Stout Month, and I'm a little behind schedule. I'm about 1 or 2 beers behind schedule, so tonight will be a double feature, and then tomorrow and Saturday you can expect the final 2 stouts, possibly 3 more stouts. I'm hoping to end Stout Month on a double-fisted comparison, not a review, so it just depends on if I can get the beer that I'm looking for. Otherwise, it'll just be a review. As I was rambling, the head dissipated and retained very well. It is very, very dark brown, what I like to refer to as always chocolate milk brown. It just reminds me of chocolate milk in my glass, the shade of brown anyways. But there's really no head in here. It's not even a thin film. I mean, it's just barely even there. It's just a rim around the glass. This beer is 8% alcohol, I believe. Yeah, 8% ABV. So not sessionable. Imperial Stouts usually aren't meant to be sessionable anyways, especially in a 1-pint can. It's just meant to really be enjoyed by itself, or after dinner or something, you know, right before bed, as I'm doing. There is, you can't see it on camera, but there is a lot of sediment in here floating around. Definitely an unfiltered beer. I'm guessing a lot of the fruit is what this sediment is. Yeah, I would assume it's the boysenberries and the sweet cherries floating around in here. I saw a little bit of carbonation, but this thing isn't very volatile, not a lot of bubble action going on. There are bubbles on the side of the glass, however. I'm seeing a little bit of alcohol legs on here, and I believe this beer might lace up as I drink it, but it's not lacing up on the glass right now. Coffee for sure. I'm a little let down. I was hoping the fruit and the jelly donut character would come out in this beer, but the first thing that hits me is roast and coffee. I think a little bit of the vanilla is coming through, just a smidge, not a lot. It's not a very sweet aroma. I think maybe if I really try to dig in there and then pull it out of the air, I'm thinking maybe I get just a touch of the cherry or berry. But that could be my mind playing tricks on me, because I know there's boysenberry and cherry in here, and it might not even have that aroma anyways. It might just be mind tricks. So again, coffee and roast is really the backbone of this beer. It definitely is an Imperial Stout, and they weren't really trying to sweeten this thing up and turn it into something else, which I can respect sometimes, and I think if you're a stout enthusiast, maybe you appreciate that as well. So after, you know, at the beginning I get the coffee and the roast, and then after comes this, I don't want to say thin, because that would make you think of like a Bud Light, but like a thin, leaning towards medium viscosity kind of comes through. You know, my brain kind of adjusts to the viscosity after all that coffee and roast. And in the middle of the sip, I get a little bit of a tartness. Now, could I tell you that's boysenberry or that's cherry? Probably not, but I do know it does taste like fruit. So there is a fruit character here, and it comes with a little bit of a tartness. So maybe that comes from the boysenberry, although I'm not privy to boysenberry, so I'm not sure what I'm tasting there. Nevertheless, there is fruit character here. Oh yeah, that's a nice. I'm going again. I really like that sip. I would have to say, I feel like the vanilla's in there. But just for me, I have to kind of wade through the coffee and the roast, and then that kind of gives way to the tartness and the boysenberry and cherry, which is very pleasant as I'm drinking it, as the beer is warming up. That character's coming through. I'm reminded of Jelly Donut. I really am. If this beer wasn't advertised as a jelly donut, would I be reminded of a jelly donut? Probably not. I would think this is a soured stout if this wasn't advertised as a jelly donut. But the point I'm trying to get to is I think the vanilla is, vanilla by nature isn't necessarily a pungent, smack you in the mouth or the throat kind of flavor. And so with regards to that, I think the vanilla is just kind of floating around in there, kind of helping to sweeten up the beer. But I feel like I can tell it's there, but I can't just pick it out and say, there's the vanilla. If that makes any sense. I don't know. Yeah, there's just that underlying sweetness, but nothing real specific. And I think that's because it's vanilla. There's lactose in here, and I think that's contributing to that mouthfeel not being so light and kind of going in more into the medium consistency, kind of giving it like a milky mouthfeel. However, some reviewers out there can pick out lactose and taste it. I don't feel like I'm good enough at tasting lactose yet, so I don't recognize the lactose in this beer, although I can tell it's affecting the mouthfeel. It does give it a kind of a creaminess aspect to it. Not thick though, just a little milky, almost creamy mouthfeel. I think that's about it on this beer. Recommendations: I think this beer is sweet enough and accessible enough for somebody who wants to discover a good stout. I think if a jelly donut stout interests you and you've never had a stout before, I don't think this could turn you off. If I don't think this is a bad choice to maybe start out on a stout with, because that fruit, while it's tart, it's not puckering. It definitely doesn't taste like a soured beer. So I think it's just got a good mix of all the ingredients. I think the vanilla kind of sweetens up the overall presentation of the beer, and kind of mellows out some of that bitterness from the coffee and the roast. Because I've had some pretty bitter stouts this past month. Feel free to watch any of those stouts. There's several stouts that caught me off guard. So yeah, I think beginners, again, this beer, and then I don't know how, I don't prefer stouts, so I hate to speak for the enthusiast side, but I feel like at least for the pastry stout enthusiast, you would be, I would recommend this to you as well. This is a really solid beer. If you're into like a Russian Imperial stout that's super bitter, espresso stout, not going to like this beer. But again, I think this would be more for a beginner stout lover or the pastry stout crowd to beat a dead horse for the fifth time. Tasty beer. Does remind me of a jelly donut. I'm going to give it a 3.75 out of 5. I don't know how to explain this, but so the standard for stouts for me has become Kindred Spirits by Innocent Gun. That's the new bar for me. I haven't officially reviewed KBS, but I feel like KBS is right there. I aged a KBS, which for those of you that don't know is a Kentucky Breakfast Stout by Founders. I aged one for 6 months and cracked it open. It was just beautiful, and that was prior to Kindred Spirits, which I do have a review of Kindred Spirits up if you're interested in that review. But those two beers are the standards, and so, but specifically the Kindred Spirits, when I'm bringing it up, is there was almost no bitterness, relatively no roast either. Coming from the Kindred Spirits, it was very sweet, and me not being a stout fan, I really appreciated that. And so for this beer, while I really like it, it has that bittering quality from the coffee and the roast, and that would keep it from being a 4 out of a 5, and why I'm putting it at a B+. If you try it, you might think it's an A beer. I think other people would prefer it to be an A, a 4 out of 5, 4.25. Maybe somebody thinks this is a world-class beer. I think that person's out there for sure. But for me, I'm rating this on purely on personal preference. So 3.75. And that wraps it up. High Wire Brewing Jelly Donut 10w-40. 3.75 out of 5. Till next time, guys. Cheers.